Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. KD Hudnall with you, Russ Livingood with you. Huge week in herd athletics. A little bit of a change up in format this week. There's going to be an extra episode. Russ is going to give you the lowdown on all of that. But man, it was championships secured, something even crazy to think, but something even bigger still on the table, right? So look, you don't want to miss. This is the time of year things get really freaking interesting. And I think interesting is maybe the most lighthearted word you can use right now. So you want to make sure you're following the ThunderCast. You want to make sure you're sharing the links to all of our episodes with your friends and fellow herd fans. You can find the link to all of that in every description to every episode, no matter where you want to listen or if you want to watch us on YouTube. But Russ, let's get into this thing. I know you've got a little bit of stuff to talk. I'm just going to let you control the flow of that. So I will tee you up with, give me a quick word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC, but do that however you want.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com. All right, this is going to be a slightly different episode, like you mentioned. Jed Horton, CEO of Ignite Link, CEO of Layer 1 Solutions, partner with us, the ThunderCast, on just about everything, is going to be helping me with a different episode that we do later on this week, very shortly, where we will do the 5 things and we will do the Around the Herd. And this is just you and I discussing all the good stuff from the championship and then the news of the fallout from the last 2 days.
Yeah, it's kind of needs to just be that way, or otherwise we would just have a massive show. And I'm massively thankful to Jed. So let me give Jed a shout out. I appreciate you picking up my slack. But of course, I also know that he just likes doing the show too. So it's pretty cool that we're able to continually have Jed be a bigger and bigger part of what we do.
And another thing is, just like when he's not, that's not what he does, that he's a producer of ThunderCast Live, powered by Ignite Link. He's also not a co-host of a podcast, but he does that very well too. So
yeah. I think that guy short sells himself a little bit. Like he's
a
little bit more talented than I think that he would like to lead himself to believe or lead others to believe. But no, I'm appreciative of him. You guys, I'm sure that's going to be a great show because there's a ton of stuff that happened outside of the football world that you guys are going to get to talk about and everybody's going to get to be made aware of. But look, we know what is happening here over the past several days. Marshall was going to Louisiana to play for a Sun Belt Conference championship. Road dogs yet again. I guess nobody wants to learn their lesson late in the season by making the herd a road dog. So what happens? We roll down to Lafayette and put a good old-fashioned ass kicking on Louisiana. And I don't, they can say whatever they want to say. I'm not here to beat them while they're down. They were down some star players. We were down some star players.
Sure.
It just so happens that their biggest loss was the offensive player of the year in the conference. But ours was our leading rusher and second team all Sun Belt Conference performer. It is what it is.
One of 2 starting linebackers was out.
Yeah, right. So you've got to, you can't just, it is what it is. You got to play with the guys who are available. So, but Marshall goes down to Louisiana, gets a big 31-3 victory over the Raging Cajuns, giving the herd that 10-win season for the first time since 2015, hoisting a conference championship trophy for the first time in a decade since 2014. But also one of the coolest stats I think is Marshall made more history, becoming the first Sun Belt team to win the championship on the road, which is a big deal. That being first in anything is awesome. But even cooler than that, Marshall becomes the first team to win 3 conference championship games in 3 separate conferences. That is one hell of a cool feather. There were some swirlings about that. I remember we talked about this.
Yeah, sure.
And
you had it.
I knew I was right. I've been sitting on that stat for a decade, man. And semantically, it just got tongue-tied, I think, is what it is. But
so what you and I have figured out is that the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference, no longer counts because it does not exist right now. So that takes TCU out of the running of that. But you could throw in all the different ones that we won. We won in the Southern Conference and stuff like that. But they're talking about FBS. And as of right now, the WAC does not exist.
Yeah, but even if they do exist, it's still we were the first to win a conference championship game. Those didn't come into I don't know, I guess it was when we were doing it in the MAC. I don't remember. Those became a thing in the late 90s or in the early 2000s. But
I think TCU would have still qualified under that. I'd have to go back and check, but.
Screw them. We're the first. That's all.
I'm with you, man.
And I like TCU, but screw them. We're the first, man. So a lot of cool.
Screw everybody.
I got herd versus everybody. But you got to shout out some of the guys, man, because Mike Green sets the Sun Belt record single season for sacks. He rewrites the record book with the herd. I mean.
He's tied right now going into his bowl game, and I don't think that he's actually going to play in that.
I don't either.
But he's tied right now, which is huge because I believe that happened with 14 or 15 games, I think, because of the playoffs in the FCS. So, it's a big deal. It's a massive, massive big deal.
Yeah, and technically he did rewrite the record book because he moved guys down. You know what I mean? And that's rewriting. So what an all-time great guy. And there's so much that we can talk about, and I want to talk about. I got a feeling that these conversations that we're about to have are just going to take tangents and go off on things. It's going to be really hard to stay focused here. So I'm going to ask you guys, got to bear with us. We're going to be talking about a lot of things and sharing a lot of feelings that I think are resonating through the Herd fan base right now about a lot of things. But at the end of the day, the big point to be made about this one is Marshall is your 2024 Sun Belt Conference football champions. Whatever happened after that, I don't give 2 freaking shits about because we are the champs, right?
That's right, baby.
And the world that we live in is the world that we live in, but that trophy will remain, that name will remain in the record books forever. Marshall's a conference champion for the first time in a decade. Several generations of undergrad students, several cycles of undergrad students went through the halls of Marshall and didn't experience that.
Yeah.
And when you get an opportunity to play for a championship, you need to win the damn thing. We let one slip through our fingers in 2020, and it was really nice to get one in 24.
And here's a not even hot take that I think from me, but I think it is much harder right now in 2024 because of the conference we're in, but also the landscape of college football with the transfer portal and everything. Look at how many, Marshall Thundering blog posted this, and it was the roster starting, the depth chart from last year and then this year. And I think we had 4 carryovers from last year, that were starters coming in. People picked us 5th and everything, but that's the nature because everyone is transferring out and things. So I think this one was more satisfying and a bigger achievement than what we did in Conference USA in 2014. Not that you're comparing those 2 teams, but the rest of the landscape of college football.
Well, I think you're always going to compare your conference champion teams, right? Hell, I do that. You get into every now and again, the conversation will come up of who are the greatest Marshall teams in history and how do you rank them? And immediately you're going to go to conference champion teams, those national championship teams, and you're going to fight with one another about who was the best and what was the best. And, there's some great teams. This 2024 team, they're a top 10 team, obviously, but I don't know where they fall just yet. I think I would have to dissect that. I'm not one that wants to let recency bias come into play when you talk about historical aspects like that. Because to me, there's a couple of teams that I just don't think you're ever going to dethrone. I think your argument really for your top four,
99 and 96 was definitely.
Yeah. Your top four teams are always going to be 99, 96, 14.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, man, you're just jockeying by a game here and a game there. But they're a top 10 team all time.
Yeah.
This is a team littered with talent, and it's littered with all-time greats. Which brings me to another point, how satisfying it was seeing those guys, the Logan Osborne, raise that trophy, local kid, stuck it out here and just worked and turned into what he turned into. He's going to go down as one of the greatest offensive linemen at Marshall because of what he accomplished and how he carried himself and all the other things. Like, he had no choice to be born and live in Ona, right? But that plays into the whole aura of Logan Osborne, right?
And staying here, opportunities to leave for all these guys. You haven't mentioned him yet, but I know that he's next. JJ Roberts, guy. He actually went away to a quote unquote P4 school, and then he came back, and what a daggone impact over the 2 years that he was here. I think just drastically reshaped this team. And you got Logan as that kind of soul on the offense. And I felt like no matter what Mike Green and all these other guys did, I felt like JJ was the soul of the defense.
I think you're right. And at least I think we want those guys to be that anyway. We want them to, because they're from here. And we talked about this during 75 week. The guys from here just get it more. Yep. It's not that nobody on the roster doesn't get it. It's just like, they grew up here. Like, you can't escape the story and legend of the Herd and Marshall and what it means to this community and the Cabell County. And JJ Roberts is an all-time great player, and you can't fault a guy. Like, if you look, man, if you grew up your whole life here, I get the desire to spread your wings a little bit and see what else is out there. And he was super highly recruited out of high school, and he had an opportunity to go, get away from the area and see what it was like. And he very well may have loved it in Winston-Salem, but for whatever reason, the environment wasn't what he wanted it to be, I guess. And you hit if it's what you want it to be, you don't hit the portal, right? Yeah. But otherwise, he hits the portal, and here's the Herd, and here he is to come right back and be a massively impactful player for 2 years. And let's not forget, this year's great. For number 4 in the conference in tackles, led the nation in passes defended, all that. Let's not forget that he got incredibly had incredibly scary injury last year and had us all holding our breath. All of us were holding our breath for him and the Roberts family. And the dude returned. Like, wow, to play at a level like this, that could have went completely the other way. And really nobody would have faulted him if he would have been like, you know what? I think I'm done with football. It would have been a massive blow to the Herd program and the team. But at that point, it doesn't matter what it means to the team, right? You're like, you're worried about the kid. You want him to be healthy. Yeah. And he came back and became a first-team all-conference performer, a conference champion. He's a legend. And he comes out, I think the thing that just stamps it freaking home that nobody's going to be able to argue against the guy anymore is, while everybody else is saying, with that, I'm going to hit the transfer portal, he came out and said, and with that, I'm playing in the bowl game because I'm not friggin' done, and that's just so damn Marshall that I love that. I freaking love that.
I don't think that we're going to talk about, stats and dissect how we usually do, but I've got to give one quick shout out that all year long we kind of struggled against the run. It was one of those Achilles heels and everything. 57 yards that we gave up for the entire game, 2.1 average, and 2 of 16, I think it was. But I know it's only 2 first downs on third down attempts. Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, what a freaking effort by the defense.
Well,
Three points. 3 points. That's all we gave up.
3 points midway through the first quarter. So
Right.
you're 3.5 quarters of scoreless, stifling football. But here's the thing: Marshall got its groove back in a couple of areas because they were able to run the football effectively. That had dissipated in the past couple of games on the road, but they were hard fought wins, and we got the win. You know what I mean? But over 200 yards on the ground collectively. Shout out to Jordan Houston getting his first career 100-yard rushing game in a Herd uniform. What a friggin' time to do it, kiddo. Props to you. Props to you for putting the team on your shoulders there and carrying the load on the ground. That was freaking big time, Russ. Big time.
Yeah.
This is the first game in the past couple that, Marshall had finally outgained their opponent again. We outpossessed our opponent again. We won the penalty battle. We won the turnover battle. Like all the indicators, all of them. We dominated on third down, like you mentioned. We doubled up and then some on first downs. The only area we didn't win was fourth down conversions, but by percentage we did. We were 100%. Yeah. Our opponent was 50%. So it was just a great game. This might have been this was obviously the chef's kiss performance, not of the entire season, but over the last probably month, this was the chef's
easily
performance.
Yeah.
You just can't say enough about these guys taking care of business.
Because even in the second half of James Madison, where we dominated and everything, we did not look like we looked in this game. We still, were struggling with the run defense. We were still having some issues going down and scoring. And even though, we didn't score every single time down, we controlled this game from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to say. Now, look, I'm not trying to beat down Louisiana. Louisiana had a great season. Both teams end up with 10 wins. I got a lot of respect for their program, and what they've been able to do in recent years in the Sun Belt.
Their coach.
They've notched a lot of wins. Their coach, Mike Dunsmo's really, really good one. And I saw, here over the past day, it looks like they've got a massive piece to add to their roster. So they're going to be tough yet again. So appreciate you guys on being a great opponent and being great hosts.
Yep.
I'm not going to apologize for winning the game because that's the freaking goal, Yeah. But until 2025, I mean, the Herd's the champs for at least a year. And we'll see. We have an opportunity now, Russ, to make the greatest repeat story that I can imagine.
It's gonna be up there.
It's going to be up there. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Right.
All right.
Cat's out of the bag. Speculation came and we all kind of saw the writing on the wall. And Charles Huff's now the head coach at Southern Miss. Our roster has been decimated over the past 24, 48 hours of guys entering the transfer portal. A couple of notes with that I'm going to say, and then I'll get your thoughts on that. Just because, number one, just because a guy enters the portal doesn't mean he won't come back to the Herd. But because a guy enters the portal also doesn't mean he won't leave the Herd. So a lot of guys, a whole lot of guys, even some guys that I thought might at least wait a little bit longer to see, have entered the portal immediately. And that was kind of a head scratcher to me. So some of those things suck. A lot of those players, we've cheered for a number of years, some guys just for a year. It sucks. There are teams out there, believe it or not, Russ, that have more damage than we have.
A bunch. I didn't get to share it, but I just saw this tweet, right before we started recording this evening. And they had split by like P4 and G5, and the G5, some of them have easily 10 more than we have.
I think Tulsa, just as an example, I think I saw Tulsa had like 28 guys already.
Well, we're up to 23 by my count, but
still,
and that's just that's going to happen. Their coach, obviously, they're getting a new coach. We're getting a new coach, so that's the thing. I do want to comment real quick that you can track all this by our handy dandy ThunderCast.Online Portal Tracker. It's an article, but it's on the front page right now. As more articles come up, it'll kind of go down. I'll see if I can pin that as it starts to go down. I'll pin that up there on the top. But go right now to ThunderCast.Online. Hit that article. You can bookmark it. Share it on social media. I just want to say that before we started recording this, that I put that up Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday night, and this is Tuesday evening. It has not been 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Would you care to throw out any kind of wild guess as to how many views that has?
Oh gosh, I would say probably a couple of thousand, maybe.
Try 5,500 plus, almost
Yeah.
5,600 by the time that we started this, and it shows unique visitors, and those are well up over 4,800, I think it is. So a lot of people, and if you even Google, transfer portal and tracker, it's one of the things that pops up is the ThunderCast.
Yeah, I think
Not Marshall. I'm just saying any transfer portal tracker, ours pops up.
I think that has a couple of things. Obviously, is because there's a massive amount of playmakers from this championship herd team that have entered the portal, so people want to know. But also, it's because of the phenomenal smash up job we did last portal with last year's portal tracker. I think folks have now realized, hey, these guys are on top of it, and this is my one-stop shop. So you bookmark it, save it, open a tab, keep it open, refresh it, because we update it as we see them. And that's not just guys leaving. It'll be guys that come to Marshall. It'll be guys that enter the portal and then come out of the portal. It'll be guys that commit and then go back into the portal in the same cycle. So like we really try to make it easy to follow. And let me tell you, it is a hell of a lot of work, and we don't mind doing it, but it's hard to find everybody. There will probably be some guys that we miss, but it's pretty damn accurate. We try really hard to keep it accurate.
Yeah, we try for accuracy, and in fact, we verify this as the players announce. If it's just reported elsewhere, we actually take the time to verify that we're accurate with that. But especially when someone's coming in, we don't put them up until it is officially announced and verified and said, yes, this can be announced, because sometimes they come in and you don't want to announce that because somebody else can come and try to pooch them. Right. I've got one more thing before throwing it back to you about this transfer portal tracker. I don't want to mention every single player that's in there, but I do want to say that you and I together before this season started, and we've talked about this a lot this season, we were worried about the linebacker position. Our two linebackers entered, and they have big-time school offers already 1.5 days into this. And that just shows you really what a great job they did this year. That the two starters, we were in a 4-2-5 most of the year, that they are drawing big-time offers from other schools. So that just goes to show you it's not just about the coach leaving and everything. We had a very good roster this year.
Yeah, and I've got mixed feelings on that. I understand what you're saying. It's like what we thought was going to be a question mark turned out to be a massive strength, and that was the point. Yeah. That was the point of your statement. Yes. But I've got mixed feelings on that. I really don't want to, air those out. But we're looking at a complete rebuild. And a lot of teams are also looking at a complete rebuild. Look, I'm not trying again, when I say things right now, I'm not trying to toss shade. These are just things that I'm seeing. I'm pretty close. I stay in pretty close contact with Moffitt, Stephen Moffitt. He runs the Topper Talk podcast and a big Western Kentucky fan. And, so we chat occasionally about the goings on with our teams and how they're very similar and things. Western Kentucky is also being decimated, and they've had a lot of their offense and defense hit the portal. So I'll say that to say that it's not just us, guys. It is not just us. There are going to be a lot of G5 teams looking for a massive overhaul, and they did not get a new coach. We did. So there is a little bit of a reasoning behind why we're seeing such an exodus. And they were a conference championship game participant as well. So don't think these problems are unique to Huntington. They are not, right? There are a lot of fans around the country right now who think the sky is falling on their program, because for right now it is. But we've said this many times. You can't have guys come out of the portal until what?
Until they go in. You've got to have the roster spot open, but we can't get them until they enter from another team either, so you've got to give it a little while. There's a 30-day window. It actually runs through I don't think it's even 30 this time. It started on the 9th, and it's going to end on the 28th, which is the day of our bowl game. So it's more like 20 days for this window. And we are going to not see a lot of people coming in until after that window closes. Because until some of them are going to play in their bowl game and then they're going to enter if they have an early bowl game. So we're just not going to see a lot yet. You just have to be patient and let it play out. I do want to say, though, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's all right. All I wanted to do was circle back and say that there are some guys that are going to be playing in our bowl game. I'm with you. I think Mike Green is just going to be there, going to be on the sideline. I don't think he's going to suit up. But look, man, I want to talk about that guy for a second.
Mm-hmm.
There ain't a team in the country that wouldn't take Mike Green on their defensive line right now. And this is where the selfish fan of me is going to come out, because he could decide to go into the transfer portal and continue playing at the collegiate level. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna, because of the way things are in college football right now. This guy has an opportunity to leave Marshall, go to the NFL, and I feel like at worst, really honestly, at worst, he's going to be a second-round draft pick. At worst. I think he could leave Marshall right now, and he would be on the level of, I guess you would, I don't know if belovedness is a word, but he would be on the same level to this era of fan as Vinny Curry is for us. And we know what Vinny has meant to the program since he has been here. When he played here, he was all about the herd, and he left here and went to the NFL and had a great career, and he was a Super Bowl champion, and he has always remained about the herd, always. And I think Mike Green has the ability to be that guy for this generation of fans. And unfortunately, if you enter the portal and you go to another team, all of that guy kind of goes away. Yeah. You know, it's like you'll always be in the record books and all that kind of stuff, but it means so much for people to have these legends that they can hold on to. And we have JJ, and we have Logan, and we have other guys like that. But you know, Mike is a guy that I think the sky is the limit for, and herd fans want to love that dude forever. They don't want to see him in anything else collegiate that's not a Marshall jersey, you know? And I really hope that he just goes to the NFL. I hope. I really hope. You know, I won't say I'd be like angry if he transferred and went to play college ball. It would just, man, I'd be like, you know, that would just kind of hurt. So, you know, he ain't going to hear this, and anything that I say is not going to have any bearing on what he does in life, obviously. But, boy, I sure hope that we get to celebrate him for the next 20 years as a Marshall legend, and not just a guy who wrote the record books here and then went on and played for another college team. You know? So,
I'll get to Mike in one more second, but I do want to go ahead. I'm mentioning this just because it's getting shared around. When fans, our own fans, are sharing this, is when I feel like we have to talk about it. The entire team, is not entering the transfer portal, as several articles are. That came from a tweet from Jared Smalley, who grew up here, is still a massive herd fan. But because he is an anchor for NBC in Columbus, Ohio, for their affiliate station up there, a couple of, or really one website ran with it, and then several that are probably just using AI to cobble together their things, their articles. They put, because he said, heck, the entire team is entering the transfer portal. It's obviously a tongue-in-cheek. It's an exaggeration. It's him as a fan. It's not him as a reporter, but they sure, because it said anchor for NBC, they sure ran with it. And it's like, oh, Jared Smalley reports the entire team. So it's getting shared around on socials, and a lot of people are looking at the headline and that's it, and then sharing it, not reading the article and seeing even what it's about. But you could get on Twitter and you could respond to Jared and ask him if that's what he means. And I guarantee you, he'll tell you No, that is not. He was not reporting anything. Just as a herd fan, he said, heck, the entire team is entering because there was a flurry of portal entries. So please, for the love of God, stop with the sharing of this around and acting like the sky is falling, and please just be patient. I don't know how many times we can say that, but again, people have to enter for there to be roster spots for us to have, and it's going to be okay. Now,
also, we have a portal tracker that you can see the accuracy of who's in, and we got nothing to gain personally by not listing, but we want herd fans to know what's going on. So we list everybody that we see, either direction, in or out. So that's probably the most accurate source you're going to find. Even like the 24/7 portal trackers, way off sometimes. Like they will have guys that they will never list them on their portal website.
Because they didn't have enough stars in high school, so they're not a person that 24/7 even had in their database. It's a lot of the times why they don't put those on there.
Or what I was going to say is they'll have a guy that's in the portal that has committed to us, that played a whole year for us, and they still show him as uncommitted from the team that he left from. So it's just not always that accurate. And what those national sites do, they do a great job in a lot of areas. But we care about just Marshall. I don't give two flips about what goes on in other cities, right? And at other campuses, we care about what's happening in Huntington and with the herd. So we put work into accuracy with the herd.
Yeah. For example, day one, it was actually technically Sunday night before the before the portal opened Monday morning. 24/7 had 2. We had 9 total that had done it. So they're not following these individual players and things to get the accuracy that we are. So please share that around, and please tell your friends that are sharing the articles without reading them, that come from websites that were created 13 hours ago and use AI to write their articles, might not be the best source, and you don't have to panic. That's all we want to say.
You don't have to panic. Now, look, we're 30 minutes into this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about time we say Marshall has hired its next head coach.
Absolutely.
So the Tony Gibson era is now underway at Marshall. Of course, Tony's a West Virginia native. He's from Van, West Virginia. Most folks in this area will know him most famously as being the defensive coordinator at WVU under Rich Rod. Vastly successful team. He's been at NC State for a long time and is you don't have to sing the guy's praises. People that know about defense know about Tony Gibson.
Yep.
And so he's the new head coach at Marshall. I'm for it, right? I'm for it because especially after what I heard today with the quick interview of Christian Spears on West Virginia Metro News, we started to get a little bit of insight on how this whole situation and the coaching change and everything went down. And some people are eating some words today, like I'm not tossing shade, but we got to hear a little bit of insight from our administration, which is something I said on our post-game spaces that we should have had a lot sooner. But now that we finally did get it, some fans have backed off the cliff a little bit. They've pivoted in some of the things that they've been saying, and they've started to understand, hey, maybe we were pointing the finger at the wrong guy. So I don't know where we go from here. I'm not here to drag anybody. I'm thankful to Coach Huff for winning us a conference championship. Appreciate that. I really do.
Nothing changes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hope you have a hell of a lot of fun in Southern Mississippi. Hope you never win a game against the herd. That's my feelings. They can win all the games in the world. I hope you don't ever win a game against Marshall because
I wouldn't
why
mind
would I want you to?
I wouldn't mind if they come in undefeated because I want every team to be at their best. Yeah. And when we beat them, that elevates us. But nothing that I've ever said on this show changes now that Coach Huff has gone. I've always said that I admired how he did the navigating of the transfer portal, and you could see that paid off this year, especially when we had to replace so many starters. I'm appreciative for a conference championship. I'm appreciative for the former players that have all told me personally, you personally, and anyone that will listen, hey, they allowed us as much access to the program, welcomed us back. I think that was a breath of fresh air, and I think that's a great thing. There's just so many good things, but one above all is that we didn't have players that were in the police blotter week after week. We brought in some men of character, and I appreciate that. So none of that will ever change for me just because, he left and he, left with what we heard today that, he ended up after having an agreement to not meet with teams, he met with Southern Miss. None of that changes anything for me about how I felt about how he ran the program here. I'm glad for it. Now, go ahead. And then I'll talk about. I'm going to talk about Tony Gibson. So you go ahead.
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem with that. The exit was ugly, and a lot of folks are going to go point back and to the whole debacle with Cam Fancher in the portal and go, see, that's when a lot of folks go, that's when I knew, but okay, that's fine. I'm with you. I'm glad that that football alums were welcomed back to the program.
100%. Talk to them. Ask them how much that meant to them.
Yeah, well, you need that. The program needs that. And as much as they need it and probably want it, the program needs that, because these players that come in here need to understand it's hard to put context to things, and people think, well, just because this guy played in, 1995 or whatever, probably wasn't nearly as good as the guys we're bringing in now. And I was like, dude, I'm here to tell you, we had guys on those teams that you would not even sniff a roster spot for now, like guys on the current roster would not be beating out guys, some guys. So you got to understand that there are all-time great players that needed to be around this program. They have wisdom, and it's not just about football. They have life wisdom that they can offer and
mentorship.
Yeah. And it's like, it's one thing for me to have life experiences, but I didn't play college football. So as much as I can offer, there's still a certain level of those type of players that they're not going to hear what I say because I'm not walking the path that they're walking. But you talk to a successful guy that might be my same exact age, doing my same exact job, leading my same exact life, but he played ball. They're going to tend to listen to that a little bit more because he walked the path. Yeah. So it's just very important to have those guys back around. To my Southern Miss listeners right now, I'm happy for you because you guys were struggling and you've got a guy that you're happy to have hired. I hope that he works out for you. I'm not going to bash him at all. He brought us a championship. I'm happy for that. He brought some great players in here that I got to root for 4 years. I got to watch guys like Rasheen Ali develop and become great. He might not have recruited Rasheen. So just because Huff didn't recruit some of these guys, like he didn't recruit Owen Porter, but I got to watch him become super great in the Huff era. Yep. I did get to watch Kalen Laburn come in here for a year and put on a show for Herd fans, right? I got to watch Mike Green come in here and go from this crazy raw athletic defensive end to the best defensive end in the country, right? And that happened under his watch. I got to watch things like 2 guys go to the Senior Bowl in the same season for the first time ever. I got to watch 2 undefeated Novembers in the past 3 years. I got to watch Marshall go undefeated at home this year. So there's a lot of things for me to be happy about. I'm just not sitting over here because it's not going to be sour grapes for me, right? He moved on. He was brought here to win a championship. He won a championship. Now he moved on. Whether you think he didn't ever want to be here or not, great. I don't really give 2 shits about that. He's here to win a championship. He won me a championship. That's it. It's not sour grapes. I'm going to sleep fine tonight. I'll wake up tomorrow. I'll tweet about the portal, and me and you will talk about the Herd, and we'll hang out in some of our group chats with other friends of ours and talk about the Herd, and life will go on. And we will talk about Tony Gibson and how intense this guy is and how friggin' awesome he is, and and we get to speculate what is the identity of this program going to look like. And it's going to be freaking awesome, man. It's freaking awesome. Let's freaking do it. Like, congratulations to Huff. Congratulations to those players. Those are in the portal that aren't coming back. I wish you all the best of luck in the future. Thank you for what you did for the Herd. Thank you to Coach Huff for bringing me a championship. I really needed that. The page has turned.
the coach is gone. Long live the coach.
That's
And
right.
the new coach that comes in, Tony Gibson, someone that is basically a brother of mine and friend of yours as well, actually played under. He was on offense. Tony Gibson was a coach on defense when he was at Tech, and he has told me personally the kind of person this is, the kind of coach, and that every single player, and I know some of the players that played with him. It's been a long time since I spoke to him, but every single one of them that I have seen talk to Jamie on social media about this hire was just like, man, phenomenal. And they're like, we should do a reunion and go to a Marshall game and everything. So this is people that never played at Marshall
Yeah.
coming here, talking about this. We've had a mountain of WVU fans and NC State fans say, guys, you don't know what you've got.
Dude, let me I saw a West Virginia fan today say, I think I might have to go out and get some herd gear. And I thought, holy shit, hell is freezing over.
Yeah. I think it was yesterday or the day before. It's someone that lives in the metro area, but closer to Charleston, I think is what they said. But they said, I think I might get season tickets and go there in support of Tony Gibson. Beloved does not cover Tony Gibson when people talk about him. The other big thing that does not cover it is how hard of a worker he is. Everybody that says everyone loves Tony, the players love Tony, everybody that knows him also says you will not outwork Tony Gibson. All right?
That to me is awesome because there ain't a player that's going to be able to slide with anything if your head coach is the hardest working guy in the building.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And third thing that you hear, amazing recruiter. So we're not even talking about defense, X's and O's, which he excels at. We're talking about beloved by players, fans, everyone that knows the man of his character. We're talking about an amazing recruiter, and we're talking about a very hard worker. So let's cap it off and say, plus he kind of gets the area. It was only one game, but I played one baseball game at Van. It's very, very similar to where I grew up in Mingo County. Mingo and Boone are, if you were driving around and didn't know that you passed the lines, you probably wouldn't know that you were in a different county.
Right.
And I think that plays a lot, to come back here from Southern West Virginia and kind of knowing the area and everything. He's going to relate to those fans quite a bit in the southern part of the state. I think that he'll pull in a whole lot of new demographic.
Here's the thing to me. One of the things to me, he's always got like this monster dip in, and I think, dang, there's so many dudes who are like, fuck yeah, man.
He's got an absolute heater in at all times.
I know. And I'm not a guy that drops F-bombs, but I just feel like that's what a lot of people are going to go, hell yeah. I dig that. But that's the thing, and I'm not speculating here on who may follow Tony personnel wise from NC State, but there are a lot of guys that the NC State's not immune to the portal, right? They're going to have some guys, and that just like there are some guys that are inevitably going to land at Southern Miss from Marshall to go continue to play for Coach Huff. It's going to happen. There are probably some guys that are going to come from NC State and play for Tony. So I hope that happens. But he went in and pulled some, in-state guys, like the same year that Jaquai Long came and committed to the Herd. The number one player in the state was out of Huntington High School. He ended up going to play at NC State, And I'm not speculating. I'm just saying, Tony has come into this area and brought great players to Raleigh, So we know he's a great recruiter. And I think the first thing that needed to happen, in my opinion, happened also just before we hit the record button. Ralph Street is going to remain on staff.
Absolute dog, man.
All the things that I thought needed to happen, without saying a word, I never said anything to anybody. I thought that's the one thing I really hope happens coaching staff wise. Was to maintain Ralph Street, his expertise, him being a Herd all-timer. Like you need that. I almost did another one. You need that. You need that here. And keeping Ralph here with how this defensive line has played, with guys portaling out, portaling in, just developing the grandest of grand slams to start off your tenure as a head coach.
What have we been saying repeatedly for the past 3 seasons or so about the defensive line? It has been the number one position group that you never have to worry about the depth of it. But also, I mean, you can get as deep as you want. If the guys aren't doing what they need to do, but technique, playing as a unit, I mean, strength and conditioning. I mean, I know that I watched the very first episode. I think it was the first one, was about the defensive line on that Herd Knox video, and it had Ralph on there, and you could just tell, one, his unit loved the hell out of it, just like everybody does. But two, it was that just like they're doing everything they can, and he was just like, you got to give me a little bit more, and they were. Then they would just go out and do more. Just phenomenal. Also, I think that it's great and appropriate for us to mention that Telly Lockett is going to be the associate head coach and interim head coach coaching the bowl game. And Coach Lockett has been an amazing piece here with running back development and everything, So
it has long surprised me that Telly hasn't been lured away much.
People have tried, man.
I mean, it just seems like he was destined to be, or still may be destined to be back in Florida, recruiting and coaching at a high level. But man, as long as he's here, I hope Herd fans appreciate the hell out of him being here, because he is just a gem of a guy, a gem of a coach. I hope we keep him here. And now some questions will get answered as the days go on, and probably somewhat before we have another episode, because you have to be recruiting. So, Tony's got to put his staff together. Who's going to be the offensive coordinator? Is Daggy still in play? Is he not in play? Who's going to be the defensive coordinator? All these other position coaches, are guys like Cody Creel going to get a hard look? Because I sure as hell hope he does. He did a phenomenal job. And I hope if there's a spot for him on staff, that we retain him on staff. He was great this year, in his first year with Marshall. So I'm not here to make decisions for Coach Gibson, obviously, but there were guys that I hope get a strong look. And if ultimately we go a completely revamped, and it's going to be a mostly revamped staff anyway, but if some guys get retained, I hope, that guys like Cody Creel get that hard look, because he was great. You got anything on the staff that you want to talk about?
No, I think that I don't want to leave anybody out. And what I do want to say is we pieced together the staff this year from several changes from last year, and not only bringing in such an influx of starters and other players, that we brought in an influx of a new system, new coaches and everything. And that was kind of a recipe that could have gone very south. And we had a 10-win team that won a championship. So I think every coach did an amazing job. And there were some of these games where we had every right to lose, but their specific unit that they were in charge of made sure we didn't lose, picking up everybody else. So that's all I want to say about the staff, because I would love to see a bunch retained because of what we just talked about. But I also don't want to leave anybody out when I say it. Right.
No, and I don't either, but we have no idea who Coach Tony Gibson is talking to, other than Ralph Street. We know that's been announced. Yeah. So we don't know who they're talking to, who he may have. All coaches have a list, and they have the guys that they want to bring along with them who have performed well and they know they can count on. So I'm not going to be upset if it's a complete revamp, because Coach needs to build the team and his staff in his image. This is his program to run. He's a first-time head coach, and you want to get it right. And I remember when Huff was hired, and we looked at his inaugural staff, and we were like, wow, he's got a great mix of former head coaches, former coordinators that are now position coaches, and he brought in some Herd all-time greats like Ralph Street come back home and coach. And I'm curious.
Aaron Dobson.
Yeah, and Dobson was elevated last year. I was thinking, like in that initial staff, it was Ralph, and I believe Shannon Morrison was on that initial staff. But we know that guys want to do things specifically when it's on their first go around. As said, you want to get it right, So we'll all play wait and see, but there's going to be some conversations had and some things are going to be done pretty quickly because portal's open. You got to get recruiting. You got to get, fill out a roster.
And he is, and like you said earlier, we don't want to speculate, but some of it's not speculation when they're already announcing that they have offers from Marshall, and some of those are defensive players from NC State. So
Yeah.
not saying it's a guarantee, not saying it's even likely. We're just saying that is not speculation. That is a fact.
Yes, it is a fact. So let's talk about the interview that happened today.
Okay,
it's 10 minutes, roughly 11-minute interview. Christian Spears was on West Virginia Metro News with Dave Wilson. It was great. It's all over Twitter if you want to find it. There's a link out there. I suggest every Herd fan listen to it. Even if you're not listening to this episode and it's 4 days old by the time you're listening to us talk, go back and find that, because you get some insight into the situation. So basically, in a nutshell, here Christian says that what you alluded to earlier, he and Coach Huff had an agreement that there would not be any discussions about the contract, his contract, during the season, and under the understanding that Coach would not be talking to any other teams as well.
Mm-hmm.
Christian also indicated that they offered a contract extension to Coach Huff following 2022 after the Myrtle Beach Bowl win. And he declined to sign that extension because he did not like the idea of the buyout and the way that language was worded, I guess. And, Christian said, I'm paraphrasing, that's kind of the way we need to do things. We have to protect ourselves as much as we want the coach to protect himself, right? So
sure. Cannot be one-sided.
No, it cannot be one-sided, and that's kind of the way it looked like he wanted it to be. So he did not sign the extension. Then we had a losing season in 2023, and Christian said at that point we decided to go into, I think he called it take an investment stance, and instead of an extension, they funded things like the fuel table. And they invested in our athletes. And that's not just the football team. That was every student athlete, so that they were able to eat breakfast and lunch at the fuel table. They invested in the coach's salary pool, the assistant coach salary pool. So he was able to do, bring in some guys that he wanted to bring in and things like that. So rumors that there were no extension offered are false. It just may not have been offered in 2024 because of the agreement to not discuss the contract in 2024. So Coach turned down an extension offer after the 22 season. It was an investment in the athletes and the program in 2023. And now in 2024, we see what happens. So one side kind of kept their word. The other side did not. And that's unfortunate. So we move on. But at least now Herd fans know from the athletic department how this kind of saga has played out over the 2 years instead of just this season. Yeah. You got any thoughts on that? Now, I will say this, without you actually hearing what Christian said yet, you haven't heard the interview yet, and just me paraphrasing, initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was busy with work. I have seen some of the quotes and everything, but I have not listened to the interview. One, I had to wait on a really good link for that. They waited a little bit until after it was done. Since I couldn't listen to it live, it got posted a little bit later, and I've just been so busy I haven't been able to track it down and actually listen. I just want to say that no matter what was said on here, I guarantee you someone listened to this and said, boy, I was wrong. Whether it was similar, close, almost exactly what they heard, something that they heard today was probably different than what they have been sharing because so-and-so said, and so-and-so said, and so-and-so said. Mm-hmm. So just kind of back on what we were saying on the spaces, or more specifically what I said on the spaces. Sometimes we have to make sure that we're sharing accurate stuff, and we get a lot of flack for that because we try to be accurate and we never do breaking news, and people want us to break news or want us to get in on the juicy rumors. Sometimes things aren't known until they're talked about like this. So why put those out there and it be wrong? I think that everybody could learn a little bit of a lesson from that is all I want to say.
Yeah. Now, look, there were some what you like to call burner accounts out there that this situation played out a lot like they were saying it was playing.
Nearly 100%. Yeah.
And boy, are they happy to tell you so.
Sure.
You know? So,
And they kind of have every right to do that. The only thing that I say is like I'm not going to share that just because I heard a burner account say
yeah.
it, and I'm not going to share that just because. I mean, heck, I can't tell you how many people have told me something that they told me, and this is not just about this situation, but they've told me something that is fact. And my question is like, first, like, were you there? And it wasn't, I don't mean that in a negative thing, because if they're there, that immediately goes right up here to me. It's like, that's a fact. They were there. That's firsthand knowledge. And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, where did you hear it from? And a couple of times it's been like, well, I saw it on a message board. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not just going to blindly believe that. I need to find out for myself first before I'm going to pass that on as fact. There's been a lot of people sending me DMs and texts and everything and say, what went down? What caused all this? And I say, buddy, here's what I know. Everything else is speculation, man. And what I know was like very, very low because I didn't ask around about anything about this. You know, I didn't say, hey, can you give me the scoop on this? Because if we weren't going to break the news, why the hell did I even care? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. You know, and I'm not trying to like make fun of those
No,
guys,
not at all. Not at all.
like it's just not what we're about. You know,
Yeah.
that's all. I'm glad people look to us for, you know, like, hey, have you guys heard anything? What's the truth with all this? But that's just the thing. It's like, well, we don't 100% know the truth, so we don't want to.
Yeah.
You know, until we know, I'm content to wait and see how it plays out, just like anybody else. You know, but anyway. I guess the last bit of big news is that Marshall's going to play in the Independence Bowl against Army, and now speculation is who the hell are we going to be able to field? You know what? Christian addressed that too. It won't be our first team, obviously, but he said, but it won't be our scout team. You know, there are guys that are going to remain on the roster. There are guys that are going to play, and this is what sucks because this is the first time I can remember in my fandom of college football that I did not care about the bowl game because the guys that are going to stay and play aren't going to be treated to the full complement of the team that they were on all year. Yeah. That's unfair to them. To me, the game was the conference championship game. Yeah. That's the one that mattered. Bowl game was always just you know, it was a treat for the players, you know, a destination at the end of the season and a fun time and a fun experience. And it's still going to be that for those guys. But with Portal now and, you know, the windows, the way they fall, you can't put any stock whatsoever into a bowl game, much less a lower tier bowl that's a non-playoff game. But, man, if Marshall had been at full strength and being able to play the Army team that is out there this year would have been awesome.
AAC really awesome. Champions, 11-1 in the regular season. You know, this was a very good team, still is a very good team. Army is nearly immune to the transfer portal just by nature of it being a service academy. And we're going to get them at full strength, and they are a good team. So beating them going into the game as a 10-win team, conference champion, and beating a one-loss conference champion, that was really, really, really going to do something for us. Am I giving up when I say it was really going to do something for us? No, because anything could happen. And I remember the transfer portal wasn't that big of a deal, but you remember when Rick Minter took over as an interim and we won the Little Caesars Bowl in 2009. Yeah, up in Detroit. No one gave us a shot to win that game.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it can happen, man. It can happen. And especially I think if some of our all-time greats have some extra motivation to make it happen. And this is one of those things through adversity, which Marshall does great, that we may come together and just put together a hell of a game. It only takes one game, and we may put that game together.
Yeah, look, man, we don't know who's going to line up under center, right? But no matter who it is, there ain't a lot of film out there for Army to study on Colin Parachek. There's not a lot of film out there to study on Ja'Kai Long, whoever it might be. I mean, this is not just a one-sided thing. They're a really good team. They're a really good team. And they could come in and just lay it on the herd. But they don't have much film on a lot of the guys that are going to be playing. So you don't know. You just never know. And you never count out the herd ever. But it would have just been awesome to see Marshall as its true conference champion strength self going up against Army in what would have been like a group of 5, national championship game, like it was in 2014 when we beat the brakes off of Northern Illinois. They were a MAC champion, like an 11-win team or something like that. And we just beat the brakes off of them in that one. You mentioned Little Caesars Bowl, and I've got to say this, shout out to Martin Ward.
Yeah, no doubt. MVP. First thing I thought of when,
Shout out Martin Ward. Yeah, Rick Minther was there coaching the team, and Doc was up in the announcing booth, being introduced as the coach on ESPN, or making a guest spot up there. So it was very similar of what's going on now. I expect that Tony Gibson will probably be in the booth for the Independence Bowl. Very cool. It's funny how history repeats itself.
Yeah,
and some of these storylines. So I don't know. You got anything else? Because this has been great speculation. I will just say this as I wrap up. It's been a tough couple of days following the hoisting of the trophy to see a lot of great players and guys that we rooted our asses off for hit the portal. We told you it was going to happen. But there will also be guys that will come to Marshall that we will root our asses off for next year that are not here now. There are guys that are here now that are going to stay here now that are going to stay here through next year, and we're going to root our asses off for them too. It's really, really hard as a passionate fan to sit back and let the process play out. But we've got no choice. Nothing I'm going to do is going to speed anything up, and it's not going to make it easier. You just have to let it play out. So keep the faith, I guess.
That's actually my final thought. And I can't tell you how many times I've said that on this show. But if you are right now today saying the transfer portal is ruining college football and you hate it and you hate it and you hate it, please do not celebrate the hell out of these players that we're getting ready to bring in from the transfer portal to rebuild this team and possibly win, a lot of games and another championship with. And I say that tongue-in-cheek by basically like, yes, I want you to celebrate them. I'm saying don't give up because your players are leaving right now. Some of those, as I tweeted out very recently, they just came here from the transfer portal. So just be patient. You
unlocked a thought that I wanted to include, and it is a portal thought. And here's what I think is so bad about it, especially when it relates to teams like Marshall. And it's not really about the team. It's about the fan base. It's because Marshall is so entrenched and identifies and relates itself to the football team in such an intimate way. And, all those players are truly seen as extensions of the Huntington family. There are people that view them as my son or my grandson or whatever. And the transfer portal is taking that fabric away from people and in these college towns like that, because you don't have a guy that's here for 3 or 4 years now. And you watch him turn from a boy, literally a high school boy, into a man in front of your very eyes on the playing field and being a steward in your community. That's what the transfer portal is taking away. It's not just star players that are coming and going. It's the identity and the connection to the program and its players of the fan base. I think at its core, that's what most people hate. It's because they they find themselves becoming attached to these guys in the way that they always have, and now they're not able to do that in the way that they always have. And that at its core, I believe, is what's wrong. What people most hate about the transfer portal. But that's all I got. If you got nothing else, go ahead and take us out of here.
Yeah, whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the Jack, or whether you see us updating every single hour of every single day, the transfer portal tracker on ThunderCast.Online. No matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's ThunderCast. Russ and Jed will see you in a couple of days. Later.